Well, hello there and welcome to the bathroom of the dollhouse, where all the big thinking gets done. All right, for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers for March 29th, the day of the observer. That's right, and here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the observer. We have, what's this? That's right, a pair of, if it'll focus, old-timey binoculars. That's right, a kind of long depth of field there, if you like. Well, that's probably said wrong. Who's to say? I'm not boned up on the focal lengths of binoculars there, specifically old-timey ones to that end. That said, visual representational image aside, not altogether all too important. I just like folks to kind of see what's on the page here in front of me. Keep you part of the paradigm going on off camera. That said, what is important is it's March 29th, and so it's somebody's birthday. So if your birthday is March 29th, I just want to say happy birthday, all right? That's what's important around here. That said, sometimes these videos find folks late, and if that's the case, I just want to say I hope you had a happy birthday, all right? But for everybody else who's joining us randomly, or more ideally to celebrate the birthday, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the Diecast birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake. But if you've been here before and you know the score, well, just skip ahead in the chapters, get into the redirect. I'm going to be here rolling dice because I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled us a 5 and a 6, 4 and 11. Now, what is synchronicity? Some of you may be wondering. Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe, or the higher powers that be, if you like, will oftentimes put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations. But as we're getting on in life, a lot of times we got the blinders on to what's going on. We're very singular and narrow focus as we, get on with the commute to work or go run errands, all right? So we're apt to miss the things the universe puts in front of us. So this is a little bit of an exercise to help us take those blinders off and hopefully see those things for what they are, all right? That said, how do we recognize such things? Well, we need some kind of sign that's mutually agreed upon between us and the universe. That's right. Your daily numbers there. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable if you want to try this out that you get your own set of dice, all right, so that you can ascribe directional values to number sets and time limits with which to go in those directions. You're essentially letting the universe take the wheel and drive, all right, and just be along for the ride. That said, once you've got all that established, pick a place out that's maybe near and dear to your heart or that you haven't explored before and you've always had the desire, all right? But once you get out there, get those blinders off, like I said, all right? And start taking in everything that's going on around you, all right? The day might start to take on a little bit of a theme outside your daily numbers creeping up, all right? So let's take the visual representational image, as I often like to do. The binoculars, all right? Hey, you might start to see people out there with binoculars, all right, doing their bird watching, their leaf peeping if you're in Vermont, whatever the case may happen to be, all right. That said, doesn't always have to be any particular thing. Don't have anything baked in your mind there. I'm just saying something to be on the lookout for. You might see it crossing your path, all right? Also, it may not be a literal form of fashion of as much. It may be a visual representational image of it, all right? You might start to see whatever that object is in advertisements, in picture imagery, maybe on in a storefront advertisement or painted on the window there. Who's to say? So all told, you just got to be eagle-eyed and take everything in around you, all right? And let's say at the beginning of this first, direction that you're going in for a certain time, if you're not seeing a lot of things, all right? It's just the everyday goings on. Just take it in stride, it takes a little time for the universe to line things up for you, if you like, or for you to get used to this process to begin with. A lot of people are probably apprehensive of such things. Hey, I know I am, all right? We get set in our ways, if you like. So maybe take a step back, take things in stride, don't get dissuaded, and look around you, all right? You might notice something small like, that's right, your daily numbers, all right? You might find yourself on 11th Avenue or, what's this? 56th Street, all right? I would take that as a sign you're on the right path. So you get down there, you roll yourself new values, all right? A new direction to go in, and maybe you step up, take a look around. Hey, you know what? Maybe the number 11 bus stops right in front of you. All right, there you go, another sign. So I would say get on the bus, all right? You might just so happen to have perfect change in your pocket for the fare as well, for another synchronicity, all right? I think you're getting the idea. But maybe a little apprehensive to do as much because, hey, you don't like to ride the bus. Is this really a sign from the universe? The bus leaves without you, all right? Hey, did I just miss it? All right, hey, you know what? Take it in stride, like I said. A lot of times, even if we miss these things, as I've heard it told as well, the universe will put things back in your path so that you get to the right place. So just roll your dice again, maybe for a time limit this time. Just go with the directional value that the bus gave you. Where's the bus going? Go in that direction, all right? Maybe at the end of this particular time value, hey, you find yourself in front of an alleyway. All right, you can use the dice to make binary decisions as well. Should I go down there for even? Should I keep going for odd? Hey, you know what? Maybe you roll an odd. All right, so I can't even remember which decision that was. Let's say you go past the alleyway for that one. All right, it was a no if you like. Keep going, keep seeing what you're seeing. Maybe at this point, hey, you know what? You reach the end of another street. And you know what? Boom, you run right into a friend that you haven't seen for 20 years, or maybe 11 years specifically, because that's your daily numbers, all right? Who's to say? But you get caught up, see what's going on. They ask you what you're doing. Explain what you're doing, as crazy as it sounds, all right? They're apt to think it's crazy as well. You know what? I agree with you, it is. But you know what? Lay it on me. And they might be surprised it's your birthday, right? And you know what? They might abandon their plans otherwise, and then they might just go with you on this journey. But if you'd gone down that alley, you might have missed them altogether, all right? They would have crossed the street. So the universe lining things up for you. Hey, if you'd gotten on the bus, you would have passed them too, all right? So it was synchronous that they just so happened to come up there. That said, you met up with a new friend. You're starting to see your numbers everywhere, whatever the theme may happen to be. People with binoculars, maybe you're seeing them too. That's just examples, all right? So the kind of things that might creep up if you try this out. So get out there, see, taste, touch, smell, intuit, maybe spy yourself, a little bit of the magic there. And if you do, you're going to understand why I brought it up for you, all right? Because it's your birthday, and if there's anything I can wish for you, it's that you're out there getting your hair blown back, all right? That said, I think you get the idea. Let's get on with the read, all right? Your month is March. Your day is the 29th. Your sign is 7 to 9 degrees Aries of the Aries I period specifically, and your quality and element is Cardinal fire. All right, let's get into it here. March 29th, the day of the observer. Those born on March 29 tend to study life's action carefully and minutely before acting. They may be quirky and even slippery customers who are difficult to catch. Once, however, they realize that someone is dead serious about an involvement with them, they will begin to take that person seriously as well. And March 29 people are not ones to let others down. In a home situation, they will hold up their end with the best of them. Idealism permeates almost everything March 29 people do, and with it a belief in their own moral rectitude. In the less evolved of this day, such righteousness can lead to bigotry and a tendency to persecute others. By contrast, more highly evolved March 29 individuals manage to live by the tenet, judge not lest ye yourself be judged. Usually at an early age, March 29 people form a concept of the world and how it works, which remains with them their whole life long. At the same time, they often come to the realization of what they are meant to do in this world. For them, life is simply a matter of continuing along a personal path, steadily, unassumingly, even relentlessly. And although March 29 people can excel at what they do, they lack both the ego drive and enormous need for public appreciation found in more extroverted personalities. This aversion for undue attention can sometimes pay off, as they may be chosen for positions of responsibility precisely because they don't push to get them. If, however, it is not their lot in life, rather, to go unrecognized, they are quite content to do their work without complaint and find peace and happiness within their family, or if they live alone with private interests and hobbies. And those born on this day love, comfort, and enjoyment of all kinds, yet must still be aware of getting lost in their own world or of being possessed by dark emotional forces. More highly evolved March 29 people are trustworthy and loyal. But certain unevolved types born on this day can be particularly treacherous and ruthless in attaining their ends. Any wish to, or rather, these latter people must learn to deal with their fears and paranoid tendencies if they have any wish to progress further as human beings. And most March 29 people make excellent friends, partners, as well as mates. Because of their endearing qualities, others will accept the more peculiar aspects of their nature. And those born on this day are among that rare group of humans who can laugh at themselves, and they see the ironies of life all too clearly. As a matter of fact, very little escapes their attention, as they are close observers of society. Well aware of the foibles and flaws in others, they are good enough to see them in themselves as well. And even if they live far from their birthplace, March 29 people will never forget their roots. Many live in one place their whole life long. And sentimentality, collecting memories, old friends and associates in a living album. All right. Particularly interesting day. It made it all your own, but there were a lot of glaring similarities for this whole period that have come up. It wasn't the most, hyper-focused examination, though it was a little bit. But I make mention of that because throughout the whole book, generally it's a pretty well-rounded encapsulation to say they examine relationships, how you might be as friends, siblings, parents, and coworkers, etc. Not a lot of that was here. They pretty much just drilled down on the theme and went out from there. But they've been doing that here for the past, since the beginning of Capricorn. So I just definitely like to make mention when they do round it out, because it's almost an anomaly at this point. That said, I'd like to make a little bit of a commentary here on what we just read, maybe make associations with the days previous, the period at large, also the book at large, kind of get into the things I was mentioning were the similarities. But let's see where you differ, how you make it your own. All right, March 29, the day of the observer. You're said to have a tendency towards studying life's action before making decisions. And the reading claims you may be quirky, even slippery customers who are difficult to catch. And I almost didn't want to continue on for context, because it's one of, if not the most interestingly, almost albeit comically descriptions for a person to have come up in the book. Slippery customer. Makes you sound like a shoplifter or someone who doesn't pay after a dine-in experience, all right? But the reading goes on to convey that this relates in terms of relationships, all right? You may be a little bit aloof in realizing other people's interest in you, all right? So I would say you're kind of a cool customer in those respects, all right? And I would say that also comes off as endearing. You don't even realize what's going on, almost a little bit naive to such things, or it's not an overwhelming concern in your mind until it is, all right? Which ultimately it sounds like a knock, being a slippery customer. But the reading goes on to claim that you're anything but slippery, all right? You're not the sort who lets others down, all right? Idealism permeates your activities, considering your moral rectitude, or your righteousness, if you like. And if you're like me, you needed that to find out, your righteousness, all right? But interestingly, said morals can apparently lead to bigotry for those lesser evolved, all right? To which I suppose in terms of slippery slopes, I can definitely see making sense, as fickle as morals can be sometimes. That said, ethics can be just as fickle, all right, even though those are more socially accepted ideas. Thankfully, the higher evolved are able to balance the scales in that respect, all right? Much like others born in the period, you may also have a tendency to drill down on your life's purpose, all right? But for you, it may be tied in no small part to your early understanding of the world, very interestingly, because they said you carry it forward with you. Similarly, you may also be dogged in this pursuit and possessed of isolationist tendencies that are also found in this period. Insofar as not seeking public or spectacle with as much. All right, and like I said, bit of a through theme there. Not a lot of people are out there to be flamboyant or what do you call it, exhibitionists, if you like. So you're similar in that regard as well. To that end, the similarities just continue to stack up. You're content with your work, trustworthy and loyal, making excellent friends, partners, and mates, being accepted for your eccentric what is that, idiosyncratic or something I was trying to say, your eccentric nature, you're well aware of your foibles, excuse me, jeez, and close observers of society. All right, that runs through into the theme as well, even though you're the observer apparently. You're also thrust in positions of leadership, specifically because you didn't chase them. Again, another similarity in this period. Also possessed of dark emotional, forces, okay? The list goes on, all right? But what stands you apart in this respect is this stark examination of the lesser evolved, okay? They weren't really mentioning that kind of a dichotomy there in the days previous, so they were kind of just bringing something up that I found very interesting that they would examine. But you also have the ability to laugh at yourself and see life's ironies, which is huge. Doesn't really get brought up in the days previous, so you kind of got that one to yourself. Seemingly subtle difference, I would say, but it's huge when you stack that up against the other people and the things that they have endemic to them. So in any event, like I said, very interesting day, quite fascinating. Even though there was so many similarities, you stand apart in a lot of interesting ways. You'd have to dive into the days previous to really see those, but hopefully I imparted a little bit of an interesting side note there. See if it stacks up or lines up with you. Who's to say? But maybe we can continue on and find some more things if you don't think it spoke to you as we get into your numbers and your planets. That's right, let's get into a little bit of astrology and numerology, all right? Those born on the 29th day of the month are ruled by the number 2, as 2 plus 9 equals 11 and 1 plus 1 equals 2, and by the moon. All right, often a gentle romantic nature, a gentle and romantic nature. They are capable of enjoying a role as an assistant or a co-worker. And this may be still more pronounced if they happen to be a second child, particularly one under the thumb of a dominating brother or sister. Such people tend to develop on the mental plane, in contrast to their older sibling, who is often more physical. The influence of the moon gives those ruled by the number 2 imagination as well as feeling. However, since Aries is ruled by the planet Mars, the Mars-Moon connection will necessitate March 29 people guarding against emotional outbursts. Very interesting, very unique numbers and planets entry today. And I don't think they've ever really drilled down on this sibling aspect here, specifically in the numbers and planets. That's usually reserved for the breakdown. That said, let's get into the commentary here. I don't want to burn down everything I may have to say. So number 2 and the passive reflective moon. Very often said to endorse a strong partner co-worker dynamic over that of leadership capabilities or roles, if you like, which they somewhat conveyed, but here today they more drill down into a mention of a gentle romantic nature, along with traits of imagination and feeling, which is very interesting, as I don't remember such things being mentioned for the moon unless it was coupled to the planet Neptune. The planet of dreams, visions, and illusions, also higher ideals. So to find these traits emphasized, let alone with the planet Mars, which is the planet of like the god of warlike aggression and drive, all right, and adventure. I mean, when you put that into the mix, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Very fascinating in that respect. Almost to the point I would say it doesn't make any sense when you take all this stuff that's been in the book previously to what's the common consensus here with these planetary powers. Not what we get here today, surprisingly. But considering such seemingly discordant traits, or at least trait associations with planetary influences and natures have been running a theme this period in that they're bucking typical convention. It's not all too surprising in that respect. All of these days have been kind of running contrary to what you would think the planetary traits and natures would be. So you keep on with that trend here, apparently. So I'm not altogether totally surprised at those particular results. What is surprising, however, is this dominant physical sibling dynamic said to affect you. I can't recall, like I said, this ever coming up in the numbers and planets. That said, there's a warning to guard against emotional outbursts thanks to this co-rulership, and I would say that is much more in line with what you might expect from a Mars rulership, or even the moon kind of getting into the mix with that. You get your Venus and your Mars, and they have emotions tied in there, but they're of the different kind of the spectrums. And then the moon kind of comes in with its passive and reflective natures, and it kind of bolsters it in a way, but kind of more with a soft touch, I would argue. So, the emotions would certainly be kind of heightened or maybe just tinged in a different way. So maybe not hyper aggressive like with Mars outbursts would tend to be, but they still mentioned outbursts. So, in any event, like I said, that's about the only thing that seems to naturally line up with what you would assume with the planetary powers there. That said, I don't know if that imparts a lot of astrological knowledge there for you, but hey, you know what? Maybe it lines up with you perfectly, and it blows your hair back that it sounds so strikingly similar. Who's to say? But that said, that's been your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to your tarot. All right, that's right. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies. But it's here in the book. We don't have to take it home with us and start dealing out the cards and predicting our future, or however they're used. But oftentimes these cards will line up with what's been conveyed in the breakdown, surprisingly so. And this isn't something that they just pick out which one best matches. It goes in a number system, so it's pretty interesting to see when they do line up. Sometimes they don't, we'll just have to see. But let's get into it here. The second card of the major arcana is the Priestess, shown seated on her throne, calm and impenetrable. She is a spiritual woman who reveals hidden forces and secrets, empowering us with that knowledge. Favorable qualities of this card are silence, intuition, reserve, and discretion, whereas negative values are secretiveness, mistrust, indifference, and inertia. All right, this was a total copy-paste job here as far as the tarot is concerned. Generally is, the only difference being they might button it once in a while with some way of saying, like, these are traits that this particular person should strive to embody, that kind of thing, or use as an example to live towards. None of that here for you today, so let's see if I can impart a little bit more context and see how it matches up, all right? Here we go with the tarot here, if I can find it. The Priestess, the calm and impenetrable spiritual woman who reveals hidden forces and empowers us with that knowledge, all right? Or the astute, steady, unassuming, and dedicated to task observer, I would argue, okay? Perhaps impenetrable due to the inner world in which you inhabit. Who's to say? Favorable qualities of silence, intuition, reserve, and discretion. The lack of ego and desire for public spectacle and notoriety, perhaps? Maybe. But negatives of mistrust, so it might be that paranoia that was mentioned for the lesser evolved, all right, with the negatives. Also inertia, or getting weighed down by inaction, or getting lost or off track by the so-called darker forces. The emotional natures that may be creeping up there sometimes when you're down in the doldrums. And also indifference, which might speak to the ruthlessness in chasing personal ends, all right? Again, for the lesser evolved, ostensibly. And I would say it's a rather apt card. I could see all of these qualities being baked in with the things that we learned about you in the breakdown. The observer, all right? You're experiencing things out there in life, not necessarily broadcasting them for everybody, and then taking those things in, gaining experience, wisdom, and knowledge, all right? And then, perchance, giving those out to other folks, empowering them with that knowledge, if you like.
That said, like I said, I thought it lined up very nicely, and that's another thing that's been happening in this period. The cards just speak to the day writ large. Sometimes it's a nice little puzzle piece, fits into the grander scheme of things. I've been calling a lot of these keystone cards. They seem to just inform the breakdown lately. So I would argue that's the same for you here too. That said, that's been your tarot. Pretty painless, all right? So let's move on to your health. Here we go. March 29 people are often remarkably healthy, but as sensitive types may be prone to various nervous disorders and occasional depressions. March 29 people should avoid excessively fatty foods, alcohol, and drugs, all of which can have damaging effects on the liver and the gallbladder. Tooth decay must also be guarded against because of the sensitivity of March 29 people to the moon. Hormonal difficulties may arise, particularly in women. Usually, when such problems exist, they may be detected in an altered facial expression, most notably in the eyes. At these stressful times, the importance of positive support from loved ones cannot be overemphasized. Moderate exercise will help keep March 29 people healthy, but all excessive exertion should be avoided. Drinking 1.5 quarts of pure water per day will help avoid bladder and kidney problems. So it's nice that we're here in the bathroom today, right? To that end. But as far as diet is concerned, spicy foods appeal to March 29 people, but should be kept at a reasonable level. All right, you're already in the bathroom getting rid of that water. You don't want to be in there for other reasons with the spice there. All right, hey, that's been your health. This one was trademark again, totally deviated from the typical boilerplate. They really personalized this one here for you today, and they've been doing that for the period here, interestingly. All right. You're said to be remarkably healthy, okay? That is not something that pops up this period all too often, just once in a while, all right? That said, you may have some sensitivities, all right, and suffer nervous and depressive disorders. That is a little bit more common for the period, all right? Avoidance of fats, alcohol, and that's somewhat of a novel mention here for the period. Don't think it's come up too much. But mention of tooth decay, that has been coming up the past few days. And I think it just kind of dovetails in with the Aries body area, being the head, the brain, the cerebellum, I think it was, and also the spinal cord there. Interestingly, tooth decay has been coming up, so it must have something to do with the head stuff. Also, what else do we have here? Mention of hormonal difficulties with women and the moon's association to that end. A surprising first. I don't think I've ever seen this come up before, and I wouldn't have thought about it until I saw it, and I go, oh, that makes sense. People saying the moon changes folks. But then this aspect of you being able to detect it in the eyes, all right, I found that surprising too. So, hey, maybe be on the lookout for so-called changes like that. If you're a person born on March 29th, but somebody who's associated with them. And then you can let them know, hey, it's real. The change in the eyes is real. That would be interesting. Let me know down in the comments if that's true, all right? When and if you do spy it. That said, the water aspect. I have seen this once in a while, but not altogether all too common either. And the spicy foods for diet, not too common for that in that respect either. Typically, these diet recommendations, they come down to very specific foods. And in this period, they haven't really been drilling down on specific foods. Just kind of here and there, general suggestions. Foods that make people feel good, kind of endorse feeling comfortable. Some folks need to be dragged to the table. That's the diet recommendation because they're so in the weeds with their passion that they don't even eat. So those are just the kind of typical deviations from the boilerplate we've been seeing come up this period. So again, that seems to be another through line theme, bucking convention. So you continue with that particular trend, all right? That said, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go. Don't impose your belief systems on others, all right? Not everybody agrees with you. And beware of arousing antagonism, all right? Push yourself more toward
achievement, and work on those oddities of character that hold you back. Don't just revel in them. All right. Very quick down and dirty, quick, concise, in and out. Typically, that's how we do with the advice here. Let's see what I had to say about it. A little bit redundant, but I would also say there's some surprising reveals in here that kind of went against my initial image of you based on the breakdown. Here we go. Don't impose your beliefs on others. A very common through line for the period, as it turns out. Now, I didn't get the idea that you did, interestingly. You had that reserve, you're back there in the crowd kind of observing things, taking things in stride, understanding the world as it exists there. I just didn't get the idea that you had the impulse to necessarily, share such things, all right, or do so in a way that moralizes the folks. But they did bring up the moralized rectitude, so perhaps in that respect you do, all right. But if you have a profound moral rectitude, like I said, you may be disposed rather to moralize without realizing it too. You might not even understand you're doing it. So I would say be measured, try to cultivate some self-awareness in that respect. Those are two through-line themes for the book, along with moderation. So those come up in that respect. They said beware arousing antagonism. Something that's come up again the past few days, like I said, even for those glowing individuals who basically don't threaten anybody in any respect. But I think why it comes up is because other people may be jealous. They're so positive and sunny, all right? They still arouse antagonism, interestingly. So be on the lookout for that. And keep your observational powers in good standing, I wrote here, all right? But don't go full paranoia either, all right? And then you start turning the antagonism on yourself there in no small part, without even realizing it, maybe. So push toward achievement, they said. Don't let opportunity pass you by as you get complacent, perhaps, all right? You just get a little bit too comfortable letting things go by you. Hey, you're not advancing at all. You always got to be advancing in some respect, learning, constantly learning. And I picked up that you do that, all right? But just make sure you're doing something with it, I would argue. Also, it's been common the past few days, all right? That's the through line theme here. Commonality with your peers. Work on your foibles. Don't just revel in them, all right? Just celebrating yourself and things that make you different. That's great, but we should try to improve on them too to some extent. I'd say it's an endearing to claim ownership over such things, for sure. But they're weird or eccentric to other individuals, all right? And they may hold you back, especially if you're advertising them. Some folks are like, that's just a little too much. So, just try to improve upon them subtly, all right? And maybe not browbeat people with them too if you may be predisposed to do that. I think I read revel wrong as more as reveal, all right? At least when I was making the notes here for that. And I would say that makes a lot of sense there. So eccentricities can throw people off, like if you're doing videos from the facade of a dollhouse there. So be measured about it, all right? Some folks might find it endearing, others a total put off. So in any event, just do you, but be measured, I guess is the point. But that's been your advice. So let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get something else to think about. And we're in the bathroom, a great place for doing that when you aren't getting rid of water. Here we go. My responsibility for the world begins and ends with myself. Oh, I like this for everybody. All right, here. Once again, my responsibilities for the world begins and ends with myself. All right. That's your birthday meditation. I'm not going to throw my spin or interpretation on it for you. Sometimes I have them, sometimes I don't. I don't really have one here for you today, so hey, you know what? That's just fine. But like I said, even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you. It's just for you. That said, your meditation being related, let's move on to your strengths and weaknesses. I got ahead of myself there in my mind. Your strengths, let's see where you got the girth, and then maybe where you're a little more atrophied, all right? So your strengths, you're idealistic, yeah, that got mentioned. You're ironic, that did too, and you're loyal. All right,
We got that one too. Sometimes we're surprised here when these things come up. It was like they were reading between the lines, all right? But your weaknesses. Oh, let's see where you got the atrophy there, ostensibly. Your weaknesses says you're opinionated, unambitious, and you're aloof. Oh, the cool customer came into the fore. All right, oftentimes I like to say our strengths are going to help us improve upon our weaknesses, even if they're even something that need improved upon, right? But I also like to make the case that our weaknesses can be strengths in unto themselves. So let's see if I can do the work today. I had to put in some work because I thought these were some particularly interesting strengths to expand upon. So let's do the work. Here we go. Idealistic as a strength. How can that help you improve upon your weaknesses? What did I write down here? You're unexplainably passionate, idealistic, all right? You have a visionary outlook on things, open-minded to the different things in the world. You also have a moral compass, and you're committed to integrity. All right. Hey, you take all those things and you aim them in on yourself, and I would say it makes the perfect recipe for trying to improve upon your weaknesses. All right. You're going to do right by yourself, not just by the world. So make sure you turn it inward there if you need to improve upon yourself. Having that personal idealism, it's huge. All right. It means you got that expansive outlook, and you know what? You can't beat that, I would say. You're also ironic. How can that help you with improving upon your weaknesses? All right, I wrote you have a unique humor, okay, but it's not just that. I'd say it expands out to a different perspective on life. Also, you're able to identify contrasting elements. Not a lot of people are able to do that. And you're going to get insight into how to accept hardship. And what do we have here? Seeing what things are for what they are, but also what they can be otherwise. All right. And so with weaknesses, hey, how can I change this? How can I see the irony of it, not get down in the dumps because I feel bad that I have this weakness? What's the irony in there? What can be from that weakness? All right. What can be otherwise? I think it's huge to have irony, so we can stay uplifted, identify the things that would otherwise hurt other people, get them down in the dumps. You can get a laugh out of it. All right. I said you enjoy, celebrating your foibles. I would say that's a big part of it. Strength-wise, too, you're loyal. All right. There's a moral dedication that hinges on choice when it comes to being loyal. All right. You choose to be dedicated. All right. You aren't made or required to be dedicated. It's a choice. And so if you're making it a choice to be with somebody, you know what? That's huge. Outside of a shotgun wedding, if you like, we kind of had to do it. All right. So maybe that person's stepping out on the side because they never wanted to be in the relationship. That kind of thing. I think that's the difference between being required versus a want to do it. All right. So that's huge with loyalty. How's that help with your weaknesses? You shift it on yourself. All right. I want to improve upon these things. I'm going to make sure that I'm dedicated to making it work. All right. That said, how can our weaknesses be strengths? So said you're opinionated, all right? So there might be a little bit of that moralizing in there. People don't want to hear it a lot of times because they got their own opinions, and morals are a intrinsic thing. Ethics being for everybody, if you like. But even then, people don't want to be browbeat with that kind of thing. So what did I have here? How can your opinion be a strength, all right? You have a point of view, and all right, a lot of times people don't, and they don't share those kinds of things, and hey, they're kind of a mystery. You don't know where you stand with them. If you have an opinion, hey, you know what? They know where they stand with you. That's for better or worse, though, however, all right? Strength-wise, people know that you have something to say also, and you may have wisdom to convey as well. Hopefully you do. And if you're an observer, I would say you do. What else here? But you also may not, all right? Especially if you're lesser evolved. So we got to know what to cultivate and what not to. This is a huge one that I could see going back and forth, all right? What else do we have here? Also, idealism can inspire or irritate to that end. So idealism could be right down there as a weakness with it, I would argue. Let's see, but the big thing about it is knowing your audience, okay? If this is someone who doesn't want to hear my opinion, all right, I'll keep it to myself, all right? You don't want to drum up those antagonisms if you don't have to. All right, also unambitious, letting opportunity go. We kind of saw that. Some of the folks get thrust into a leadership position and they don't even want to be there. But you know what, in a lot of cases, I'd say that's great because then that person dedicates themselves to the task because they want to do well versus someone who just wants that leadership for themselves, more selfish ends. You can't necessarily trust people who are angling after those kinds of things. What are they going to do in that position? You never know. But unambition here for you, you kind of lackadaisical going through the thing. That inertia sets in. You got to have that force that pushes you up and gets you going. Complacency all gets in there. So how can unambitious be a strength? All right. You live in the present. Okay. You're not chasing after some future goal. All right. You're here in the now. That's huge. You're also there's reduced pressure and anxiety in your life because you're not chasing after something. We also have you're content with small goals. All right, so that's huge too. It's the little things sometimes that help us get over to the top of the hill and peek over the other side. We don't have to do it all in one shot. Also easygoing. You accept life as it comes versus striving for the future. I think we kind of mentioned that. But what's a strength? How can aloof be a strength? All right, that cool customer, if you like. Otherwise, sometimes they're just things they don't internalize things as far as the weakness is concerned. They just let things go, can't be bothered, or they're just a little too cool for school. All right, and that guy's out to lunch all the time. All right, but how can that be a strength? You've got an air of mystery around you because you don't let things out too much outside of your opinion, ostensibly, right? But you also, what do we have here? You don't burn it all down, demonstrating your opinion if that's the case. All right. If you do, what am I trying to say? Aloof folks, I don't think they would be out there really throwing it out at folks, if you like. Why they have that down here as a weakness too, I think that could be argued as a strength. It makes you endearing to other people. You also don't seek approval from folks, all right? You live in fast and loose as it comes. I think that's a huge strength. But again, I think it can totally dovetail into the complacency aspect and the inertia holding you back. So I can see why they listed a lot of this stuff as a weakness. So I'm not the best case probably here today. I definitely went long in here because I thought these were so important and interesting. I wrote them in the book, what I had to say about it. But I think you get the idea. Don't think your weaknesses aren't something that can be improved upon. And also understand how it could be a strength in those respects too. It just depends on the situation and how to apply it. So you got to know how to identify as much. But if you're an observer, I'm sure you can figure that out in due time and with experience, all right? Just take it with you. Don't get down in the doldrums or have those emotional, darker aspects play into the fold with you if you don't succeed, all right? That said, I think you get the idea. And in a lot of cases, I also like to say, don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether because they're part of who you are. All right. That said, ran along with that. Let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is look at it, not just to see who shares your company, but to maybe drum up some inspiration to figuring out our passions. Because too often in life I meet folks, ask them what they do, and more importantly if they like it, and they don't, all right? And I think it's important that we have something fulfilling in our lives to jump out of bed in the morning doing backflips to get into, all right? That, a purpose that makes life fulfilling. So if there's anything I can wish for you on your birthday, it's if you don't have that you're carving out the time, putting in the energy to figure it out, and maybe figuring out or finding out rather who shares your birthday and what they did can serve as a little source of inspiration to get the ball rolling, all right? Get you stirring up the fires. So let's get into it here. We start off with John Tyler, the U.S. president who annexed Texas, all right? We also have John Major, the British prime minister, Eugene McCarthy, a U.S. presidential candidate. We also have Elihu Thomson, a British-born inventor, co-founder with Edison of General Electric. We also have Pearl Bailey, a singer and an entertainer. Walt Frazier, a New York Knicks all-star basketball guard, and also a commentator. We have E. Power Biggs, an organist. Eric Idle, a British comedian, a Monty Python member, it says, also a TV and a film actor. Earl Campbell, football running back. Heisman Trophy winner, 3-time NFL rushing leader, 3-time All-Pro, and 2-time MVP. I don't know if we've run into any observers as yet. Let's keep our eye out for that. We also have Jennifer Capriati, might be saying that wrong, a tennis player, U.S. Olympic gold medalist, and the youngest Grand Slam semifinalist ever. We also have Michael Brecker, a jazz tennis saxophonist and a composer. Aileen Bertha Durek, Duerk, Durek. I'm probably saying that one wrong too. In either regard, first woman U.S. Navy Rear Admiral. All the way to the top there, it sounds like. Or close to it, if you like. All right. Sam Walton, the Walmart chairman, the U.S. wealthiest man at the time of publishing, $18.5 billion. Them be some small numbers these days. How about that? We also have Billy Carter, an entrepreneur with a peanut business, and Jimmy Carter's brother. We also have Denny McLain, a baseball pitcher, and the last pitcher to win 30 games. Also 2-time Cy Young Award winner, convicted of racketeering, extortion, and served 29 months of a 25-year jail term, and sentence was overturned. And who was that again? Geez, this was a long one. Denny McLain. Can't say I've heard of him, though. Vera M. Dean, a Russian-born U.S. international affairs specialist and an editor. Charles S. Elton, a British zoologist and writer of Animal Ecology. We also have Bill Vukovich, an auto racer, a 2-time Indianapolis 500 winner. William Walton, a British film composer. And finally, Rosina Levine, a Juilliard piano pedagogue, or a teacher if you like. That said, there weren't a lot of names that I recognized, so you know what? You know what that means? That means there is ample room for you to make your own mark. But you got to be chasing after a passion, I would argue. Something that you're really going to put your foot forward with, all right? But you got to carve out time and put in energy to figure those things out. That said, if you've got a passion, all right, and hey, the hat I'm not wearing's off to you. This will just serve as an interesting little side note to see who shared your company. That said, I know it's a big-ass tall order to try to get inspiration from other people's accomplishments. But you know what? If I can just put the bug in your ear about it, all right, and get you out there to strive after, then hey, my work here has been done. There's nothing else I can wish for you on your birthday. It's that. That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. I did butcher a few names, so let's make up for that here on my side of things. Not done in malice. I just don't have that pedagogue or for the language gear, all right? I can't think of the word for that. But that said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, like I said. Except to say your season is spring, your sign once again is Aries of the Aries, 1 period specifically, and your quality and element is Cardinal Fire. And this has been March 29th, the day of the Observer, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Just Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up a copy, getting through it quicker than I could for you. That said, this thing makes an excellent coffee table book, all right? If you're going to ever have some company over, you don't want to do the lion's share of the lifting when it comes to breaking the ice, hey, let this thing crack crack a hole in that, if you like. Considering its girth, it would do a very good job. The content, too, is going to do it for you. So give it some consideration in that respect if you ever find yourself in that particular circumstance. That said, it just makes an interesting read, and you can find out a lot of interesting information there, even if it's just you in the mix, all right? That said, book having been relayed, not altogether all too important. Like I said at the top, what is important around here, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else that joined us randomly or more ideally to celebrate, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, took something of value, and we see you for your birthday reading as well, all right? Now, lest I forget before I take us out, that's right, your daily numbers. Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path, all right? You don't have to go with my numbers like I said, but hey, if I can wish anything else for you on your birthday, it's that you're getting your hair blown back when the universe shows you it's with you on your path. When you start stacking up coincidences or synchronicities, if you like, all right? I think they're interchangeable. But finally, I just want to say thank you for the pleasure of your time. And for your birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents, it was a privilege to share your birthday with you. All right. I put a personal message together for everybody, or for the birthday boys and girls, rather, underneath the affiliate link. So have a look out for that if you're interested. Go check it out. But once again, Happy birthday, all right? So get yourselves out of the doldrums if you find yourselves paranoid or otherwise nervous. Look out for those hormonal differences in the eyes when the moon comes around. Let me know in the comments if that's a thing. I'd be interested to find out. But otherwise, keep observing, all right? And keep your weather eyes on the horizon, all right? Happy birthday. Take care of yourselves.